My friends, we live in a world where the wind seldom ceases to blow. It howls with offense, with noise, with trivialities that dress themselves as urgencies. And yet, amid the gusts and gales of this restless age, there is a rare kind of man or woman who walks as if in stillness, as if nothing truly disturbs them, not because nothing touches them, but because they have learned to govern themselves within. This is not indifference, it is not apathy, no, it is the quiet strength of a soul that has found its footing, the strength to act, not as one unfeeling, but as one undominated, to carry about one's duties and face one's trials with a composure that says, "This storm may shake the leaves, but it shall not move the root." Today, I speak not of a trick, but of a truth. To act as if nothing bothers you is not a performance, but a practice of character. And in time, it becomes not a mask you wear, but the very face of your peace. The modern man is constantly seeking relief from the outer world, as though if he could but silence the noise beyond him, he would discover serenity within. He rearranges his furniture, turns off the news, and avoids the unpleasant. Yet he finds no rest. It is not because the world is too loud, but because his soul is too untrained to bear the noise. Peace, if it is to mean anything at all, must begin where storms cannot reach, within. You may flee the city and its clamor and find yourself in the countryside, only to carry with you the same troubled thoughts that troubled you in the square. You may silence every voice in your chamber, and still your mind will shout at you, accusing you of what you have not done, reminding you of what you cannot control. This is the great illusion, that quiet outside creates quiet within. But it is not so. We do not tame the winds by moving the sails. We must build a stronger vessel. The Christian saint, the philosopher, the wise grandmother, they all knew it. They all came to that still conclusion, that nothing out there will ever be calm enough to quiet what is in here. The storms of the soul are not made by circumstance, but by the soul's response to it. One man is mocked and rages. Another is mocked and smiles. The difference is not in the mocking. It is in the man. And that is the great hope. For if the world is to blame, we are helpless. But if it is within us, then we are not without recourse. To act as if nothing bothers you, then, is not a way to pretend the world is kind. The world is often cruel. It is indifferent. It rains on your wedding day and gives sunshine to the wicked. But to act unbothered is to declare that your joy, your focus, your integrity are not at the mercy of climate or crowd. You say to yourself, and to the world by your bearing, that you have found something more stable than applause, more secure than comfort. This inner peace is not natural. It is not the temperament of the lucky. It is trained, it is carved out like a path in the wilderness, walked again and again until it becomes the obvious route. And that path is made by choosing stillness when you wish to shout, by choosing understanding when you are tempted by wrath, by choosing not to take offense even when it is handed to you with force. Of course, there will be times when you fail. There will be mornings when you rise with a heart like a thundercloud and evenings when every word spoken feels like a blow. But let this encourage you. The man who keeps walking the path, however clumsily, is still moving forward. Peace is not a destination, but a way of walking through the world. It is not once achieved and then owned forever. It must be chosen daily, hourly, sometimes minute by minute. And if you will learn this, if you will seek this peace not in the fleeing of troubles, but in the taming of your spirit, then you will begin to act as if nothing bothers you, not because you feel nothing, but because you have chosen to be ruled by something higher than emotion. And that, I tell you, is strength. It is the kind of strength that cannot be faked and cannot be shaken, the strength of a soul anchored deeper than the surface storms, the strength of peace that passes understanding. It is a peculiar thing how often we mistake calmness for coldness and composure for pretense. We live in an age that demands expression, that equates authenticity with outburst, as though to restrain oneself were somehow dishonest. But this is a dreadful confusion, for it is not the loudest man who is the truest, nor the most reactive who is the most sincere. Indeed, there is great moral strength in the man who can feel the storm rise within him, and yet choose not to let it break upon others. To appear calm when you are tested, wronged, ridiculed, this is not a deception, but a decision, a higher decision. It is the deliberate act of placing your reason above your instinct, your values above your impulses. When a man acts calm in the face of provocation, he is not pretending that it does not hurt. He is simply refusing to let the pain dictate his behavior. And this, I believe, is a form of courage far more admirable than the kind that shouts and strikes and demands to be heard. There is a dignity in self-calm, and that the world has nearly forgotten. In a culture addicted to outrage, the one who is unshaken appears strange. But remember this: virtue has always seemed strange to those who serve only their passions. The calm man is not a man without fire. He is one who has built a hearth to contain it. He knows that anger can burn a house down just as quickly as it can warm it, and he has chosen to be a keeper of the flame, not a slave to it. You may be tempted to believe that such restraint is weakness, that to bite your tongue is to betray yourself, but I urge you to look deeper. What if your highest self is not the one who lashes out, but the one who holds fast? What if the truest you is not the child who screams when denied, but the adult who governs his soul with patience and resolve? There is a lie in our age that tells you to be real at all costs. But what is more real, the man who flails at the world, or the one who stands firm in what he knows to be right? To act as if nothing bothers you is not to say nothing matters. That would be indifference, a spiritual numbness. No, to act with calm is to say, this matters, but it will not master me. There is moral weight in that. It is a statement of who you are, not merely how you feel, and that, I think, is where many go wrong. They wait to feel calm before choosing to act calm. But the soul must often walk ahead of the emotions. You do not wait to feel brave before doing what is brave, so why wait to feel serene before acting in peace? It is not hypocrisy to act in the way you ought, even when you do not yet feel like it. That is not falsehood, that is faith. The man who is learning to forgive must often speak kindly while his heart is still sore. The woman who is learning patience may smile even as her nerves rebel, and each time they do, they inch closer to becoming what they have chosen to imitate. So I say, let calmness be your discipline, not because the world is gentle, but because you have resolved to be, not because nothing stirs your soul, but because you would rather be stirred by truth than by temper. This is not performance, it is character, and in time your choice to appear calm will become your capacity to be calm. What begins as imitation may end in transformation, if only you will be faithful in it. It is not in the clash of swords or the roar of warplanes that most battles are fought. It is not in the courtroom or the marketplace, though these places pretend to be theaters of decisive struggle. No, the greatest battles occur in silence, in the privacy of one's own thoughts, where no applause is heard and no enemy is visible. It is in the mind, in that quiet inner sanctuary or battlefield, that the soul either rises or is undone. For most of us, the struggle is not against the world itself, but against what we think about the world. A word spoken against you may sting, but it is your thoughts that keep it alive for days. A fear may pass by like a shadow, but it is your mind that invites it in and gives it shelter. The true tyrants are not always external. They are the thoughts that rule unchallenged within. And so, the man who hopes to live unbothered must first learn to win the secret war of the mind. We are not merely creatures of flesh. We are beings of spirit and will. And our minds are the seat of that invisible realm where good and evil wrestle, not as myth but as motive. The envious thought, the bitter suspicion, the anxious imagination. They may seem small, but each is a soldier in the ranks of chaos. They whisper to you not in the language of logic, but of fear and fury. They meant to insult you. This will go wrong. You are not enough. And if you believe them, if you allow them to march unopposed, they will govern your emotions, and your emotions will govern your actions. But there is good news. You are not helpless. You are not a prisoner of every thought that visits you. No one blames the traveler for seeing a storm pass overhead, but the wise man does not pitch his tent beneath it. You have the power, through reason, prayer, and discipline, to take each thought captive, to test it and ask, is this true? Is this good? Is this useful? And when the answer is no, to cast it out. This is not easy. But what is virtue, if not the repeated refusal of the easier path? The man who learns to guard his thoughts builds a fortress within. The world may howl outside, insults may fly, fortune may fail, but within there is order. Within there is clarity, and from this clarity comes strength, not loud strength, not the sort that wins arguments or demands recognition, but the quiet, immovable strength that simply endures, unshaken. To act as if nothing bothers you, you must first train your mind not to be bothered, and to do that, you must feed it what is good. As the body thrives on bread and water, the mind thrives on truth, beauty, and discipline. Read what elevates you, speak what encourages others, pray not to escape hardship, but to face it with a sound mind. Your thoughts, like seeds, will grow into what you become. Plant bitterness, reap bitterness. Plant peace, and peace will bloom even in a harsh season. Let us not be naive. The mind is never entirely tamed. You will have days when old thoughts sneak in, when fear or anger break past your gates. But do not despair. Each day is another opportunity to train, to fight, to reclaim the high ground of your soul. And remember, no one sees this battle but God, and that is enough. The battle of the mind is the battle of the spirit, and in that quiet victory, even if the world still roars, you may walk as one untroubled, as one truly free. There is a kind of strength that shouts. It boasts. It makes its presence known with clenched fists and raised voices. But there is another kind, a rarer, quieter strength, that does not need to be seen to be powerful. This strength does not cry out in the street, does not seek to win arguments or dominate others. It shows itself in grace under pressure, in gentleness when provoked, in composure when tested, in kindness when kindness is least deserved. And though the world often mistakes this for weakness, it is, in truth, the deepest strength of all. The soul that can remain calm and charitable when surrounded by scorn or chaos or accusation is a soul that has learned to draw its strength not from circumstances, but from something higher. It is not merely enduring, it is enduring well. And that is what makes all the difference. Endurance without grace becomes bitterness, strength without grace becomes cruelty, but strength with grace, that is something altogether different. That is the mark of nobility. That is the shadow of heaven showing itself on earth. Our culture, I fear, exalts reaction. It teaches that to feel deeply is to speak immediately, to be slighted is to strike back, to be challenged is to conquer. But this kind of strength, if we may call it that, is noisy and brittle. It is quick to ignite and quick to burn out. The person who must always prove they are unbothered is often the one most easily unsettled. But the man or woman who possesses quiet dignity, who can answer insult with calm, misfortune with resolve, and suffering with perseverance, is the one who has tapped into something far more enduring. Grace under pressure is not natural. It is not the product of comfort or ease. It is forged in fire like gold refined in a furnace. You cannot discover this kind of strength while everything is going your way. You learn it when your name is misunderstood, when your work is ignored, when your patience is tested beyond what feels fair. You learn it not by escaping the pressure, but by passing through it without losing the better parts of yourself. This grace does not mean weakness of will, nor the absence of boundaries. It does not mean allowing injustice to go unanswered. No, grace under pressure means responding with moral clarity rather than fury. It means standing firm without becoming hard, being truthful without becoming cruel, and staying kind without becoming a doormat. It is to act, not out of impulse, but out of conviction. You see, the one who acts with grace in times of trial is not denying the difficulty of the moment. On the contrary, they feel it deeply, but they have chosen a higher loyalty than their own comfort. They are loyal to goodness itself, and in that loyalty they find power. It is the power that Christ showed when he remained silent before Pilate. It is the power of the one who carries the burden without complaint, who holds their peace not because they are defeated, but because they are anchored. To act as if nothing bothers you is not to pretend the weight is light. It is to lift it with quiet resolve. It is to bear up under the strain with a grace that confounds the world, because it is not from this world. Such grace, under such pressure, is not the absence of struggle. It is the presence of something greater than struggle. And those who possess it do not need to shout their strength, because their calm is its own testimony. So when you are tested, do not ask merely to survive. Ask to endure well. Ask for the kind of strength that wears a gentle face and a steady voice. For in the end, it is not how loud you were in the storm, but how faithfully you stood in it, that tells the truth of who you are. There is a strange but profound truth woven into the moral fabric of the universe, that we become what we choose to imitate. A man does not need to wait until he feels virtuous to act virtuously. Indeed, if he waits for the right feelings, he may never begin at all. Instead, he must start by acting as though he were already the thing he wishes to become. This is not hypocrisy, it is training. It is the soul reaching for what it does not yet possess, but believes is worth possessing. So it is with peace. One does not become peaceful by waiting for the world to quiet down. The world is not in the habit of lowering its voice, nor does one become peaceful simply by retreating from trouble, for trouble has a way of finding us regardless of how we position ourselves. Peace, true peace, begins in the imitation of peace. We act as though we have it, even when we do not feel it. We walk steadily, speak gently, breathe deeply, and carry ourselves with calm, not because our emotions always agree, but because we are training them to follow. At first it feels unnatural. The hands may still tremble, the heart may still race, but one keeps on. One chooses not to respond in anger, not to lash out, not to let the chaos within dictate the response without. And slowly, like a river carving a path through stone, the practice becomes habit, and the habit becomes character. We begin to be the thing we have chosen to imitate. This is, in many ways, how children learn. A child does not fully understand the meaning of gratitude or kindness when they are first taught to say thank you or I'm sorry, but the repetition, the practice, the modeling, these lay the foundation. And in time, the motions become meaning. The same is true for us, though we are grown. We must teach ourselves as we would teach a child, with patience and repetition and grace. You may wonder if this approach is dishonest. You may fear that by imitating peace when you feel anxious, you are putting on a mask. But consider this: is a musician false when he practices scales he cannot yet play with ease? Is a runner fake when she trains for a race she has not yet run? No, they are not pretending. They are preparing, and so it is with the soul. You are not faking peace when you imitate it. You are learning its shape, its rhythm, its weight, until it becomes a part of you. There is also a mystery in this, that when we act with peace, we often invite peace. The very posture of calmness, the choice to slow down and not react, creates room for grace to enter. We become less reactive, more attentive. We begin to hear more than the noise. We hear the silence beneath it, the steady pulse of something deeper. That is where peace resides, not in the absence of trouble, but in the presence of trust. And what if you fail? What if you find yourself overwhelmed and undone by anger, fear, or despair? Begin again. Start with one breath, one act of restraint, one gentle word when a harsh one rises in your throat. Do not despise small beginnings. The oak was once a seed, and the stillest soul was once wild with noise. But through faithful imitation, through the quiet resolve to act in peace, even when peace feels far away, the transformation begins. In the end, to act as if nothing bothers you is not to deny the weight of life, but to decide how you will carry it. And if you will carry it with the posture of peace, even before the feeling arrives, you will discover, someday, quietly and without fanfare, that you are no longer acting. You have become what you imitated. You have become peace.